What's going on, everybody? You have Tone here, back with some more Draft League content. This time, bringing you guys another draft analysis, this time for another brand new league starting up. The SBU, I believe it's called the Superb Battlers United. New draft league that just started up not too long ago. I've decided to take part in. Very, very excited to bring you guys some more draft content. Again, before I go any further, if you guys do enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button, as well as there will also be a link in the description with all of the coaches taking part in the inaugural season of the SBU. So be sure to give them all a follow as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into the team I ended up drafting for the SBU. So how this draft works is it's a tiered draft, as you see on your screen, where each team is required to take a specific S tier. So with the way this league works is there were 12 S tier Pokemon which were allowed for this league, so it's sort of like a semi-Ubers league for the most part, where there's 12 Pokemon that's been released and allowed for this draft league, and you don't have to take an S tier if you don't feel like it, and you can instead take another tier 1 as your S tier, as well as being able to still pick, making sure you have at least a tier 2, a tier 1, 2 tier 3s, a tier 4, and a tier 5, and then you get 400 points for free picks. For 4 free picks. So yeah, it's essentially sort of like a GBA style format, but for the most part it's pretty straightforward, more or less. So yeah, with that out of the way, jumping right into the team I ended up drafting for the SBU. So there's only 12 coaches in this league, so less people to snipe you, but at the same time though, I was actually looking forward to trying out some of the potential S-tier mons that were allowed in the league. Unfortunately, though, I didn't really get the draft position I wanted to actually secure one of those S-tier mons that I was looking forward to. I actually ended up with the 9th pick out of 12 coaches, so a little bit towards the back end of the wheel. However, I figure going into this draft, my mindset was of the sense of, I didn't really feel the need, or I didn't really feel like when it got to my pick, none of the S tier Pokemon that were left didn't really appeal to me for the most part. And I figured maybe somewhere down the line I could look for an S tier mon that would fit my playstyle, fit my draft style for the most part. But instead, I opted to go with the round 1 pick, 9th overall, and that is Dragapult. Yes, Dragapult fell all the way down to number 9. That pretty much goes for the mindset of how good the other S-tier Pokemon that were allowed was, to the point where you just couldn't pass those up. So stuff like Magearna, Kyurem Black, even Reshiram and Naganadel were all taken before Dragapult, and Dragapult fell to me at number 9. While granted, I did have the option of actually taking a different S-tier Pokemon. Dragapult is not an S-tier mon. I'm just going to point that out right now. Dragapult's actually tier 1. So basically it came down to 2 Pokemon. It was either Dragapult, or I was potentially looking at Zamazenta Crowned form. The issue with Zamazenta Crown form is, for the most part, I've used Zamazenta before in an Ubers league, and it felt very, very underwhelming. And the fact that just giving it the Crown form, giving it part Steel type, may be unique, it may be different, but having the ability of Dauntless Shield is all well and good, getting +1 defense and all that. But the issue was, outside of that, it didn't really appeal to me for the most part. in terms of it being worth a round 1 pick in my opinion. So I opted for Dragapult instead. And the other good thing about this league is you don't have to take an S tier Pokemon. You can actually pick up another tier 1 and make that your S tier instead. So spoiler alert, that's exactly what I did. It got to the point where nothing in the S tier really appealed to me to the point where I wanted an S tier. So I actually just ended up picking up 3 tier 1s. And this was the first one, Dragapult. I've used it very, very well. I feel most recently in the SDA. Really had a lot of fun utilizing Dragapult mainly as either Choice Specs or Choice Banded. I've just loved using Dragapult in that vein. Hardly brought DD sets or Wisp Hex sets, but the option is still there. I love the versatility. I love the speed tier. Base 142 speed is very, very nice, being a ghost type and a dragon type, fast with momentum, like a plethora of options at my disposal right away, just having a good source of speed and power, and I really, really am looking forward to using Dragapult again in this new draft league. So moving on to my round 2 pick, I ended up going with my second tier 1 on the back end. And technically I wasn't either going to get this pick because there actually was an S tier that I was looking forward to potentially getting in round number 2, but unfortunately it didn't get to me. It got sniped like 2 or 3 picks before my round 2 pick, and I didn't go with that S tier first because I didn't want to risk losing Dragapult round 1. So with that out of the way, I ended up going with my second tier 1 pick, and a Pokemon I have never drafted before in my draft league career that I was really looking forward to trying out, and that Pokemon just so happens to be Melmetal. So yeah, we got Dragapult plus Melmetal. Very, very solid Pokemon. Another good versatile Mon, gives me a Steel type. Its fighting weakness and its fire weakness is covered by Dragapult, being immune to fighting, resists fire, and it's very, very versatile in the sense that it doesn't necessarily have to be Choice Band with Double Iron Bash. It can do other stuff like it can spread status with Toxic and Thunder Wave, which helps out Dragapult, boost the power of Hex. It can run Acid Armor with Iron Defense sets. Like, it's very, very versatile in the sense that it's not really forced to do one particular thing, and it's really relatively bulky for its size. And yeah, it's really, really solid. I really wanted to try out Melmetal in this draft. There were other Steel type options at the time of me taking Melmetal. I still think they had like stuff like Aegislash or whatever, but since I already had Dragapult, it didn't make any sense to get a second Ghost type and make myself more vulnerable to opposing Ghost type Pokemon like Spectrier or whatever. So I figured going with Melmetal would be a little bit better for me, especially considering how Dragapult is really worn down and can lure in the fairy types that it can struggle to break past, like Clefable. It can U-turn on those fairy types into Melmetal, force those things out. So yeah, really, really good Pokemon. Pairs up very, very nicely with Dragapult, both offensively and defensively. So that is the Melmetal. So moving on, my round 3 pick, another Pokemon that I really haven't used in a very, very long time. I think going back all the way to Gen 6 for this next pick. So I picked up my third tier 1 in Zapdos. So yeah, round 3 Zapdos. Another Pokemon pairing up well with my Melmetal and Dragapult, gives me a fighting resist, which benefits from my Melmetal. It gives me a Defogger, it gives me an Electric type and a Flying type, a Defogger, momentum with Volt Switch and U-turn, getting stabbed with Hurricane, can Heat Wave, Weather Ball. Granted, I don't have any form of potential setter in terms of weather setter, like sand or rain, whatever the case may be, but it's not really forced to be in the role of being an offensive sweeper. It can potentially do that with agility sets, but it's just really, really good both offensively and defensively, especially for its typing. And its typing, its weaknesses are covered relatively well. The rock type weakness is covered by Melmetal, as well as the ice type weakness. And having that ground immunity for Melmetal helps out Zapdos as well, and giving me some sort of an extra way of momentum to get in Melmetal as well as my Dragapult. But yeah, really solid Pokemon, nice and versatile. Defogger, momentum grabber, pretty much the entire package in one. And really looking forward to using Zapdos for the first time in a long time. So that is the Zapdos pick. Now moving on to my round 4 pick, another returnee from the SDA, a Pokemon I've really loved to use, get to use it again, and that is the round 4 Urshifu Rapid Strike. So yeah, so basically what happened in the SDA is also happening here in the SBU, and me grabbing round 4 Urshifu Rapid Strike pairs up really well with what I currently have, because of the fact that Urshifu does struggle to break past those bulky grass types. I have my Zapdos for that. I can also run Fire Blast or Fire Coverage on my Dragapult. And for the most part, it just gives me another momentum grabber. It gives me a war type and a fighting type. Sorry about that. So yeah, I have those ways of breaking past opposing steel types for Melmetal. Even other steel types that doesn't resist fighting. So stuff like Corviknight, stuff like Skarmory, Celesteela gets pressured by Zapdos, which is nice for Dragapult, etc. And it's not really locked into, it's not really forced to run one particular set. Bulk up sets are really nice. Choice band sets are really strong, really powerful, giving access to U-turn, Aqua Jet for momentum, of course the signature move being Surging Strikes, 3 hits, a 3-hit war type move that always crits, and of course Protective Pads being the best item to run on a Pokemon like this, especially when signature move hits so many doggone times with my opponents trying to take advantage and chip this thing down with Rocky Helmet. I figured, well, for the most part, at the moment, my team doesn't currently have a knockoff user, so I do have to be a bit more cautious if I do not run Protective Pads on my Urshifu, but still, it's a very solid mon, really solid wall breaker, another momentum grabber to try to get in stuff like Melmetal, which also benefits my Zapdos, can pressure those things, it benefits from Zapdos pressuring bulky grasses. Urshifu can pressure the rock types that can force out Zapdos. And yeah, it just forms a really solid core with Dragapult as well. And both Urshifu and Dragapult appreciate Melmetal weakening the fairy types for both of them. So yeah, that is the Urshifu Rapid Strike. Nothing much else to say about that. Moving on, round number 5, had to snag another returnee. So yeah, we're bringing back a few key Pokemon from the SDA, and it doesn't come any more key than a round 5 Gardevoir. So if anybody knows me, they know how much I love using Gardevoir. This has not changed whatsoever on this draft. It is so good, so versatile. It's not limited to one particular set. So you can run Choice Specs, you can run Choice Scarf, you can run even Trick Room, which I've used before to great success at being a potential late game win con. And yeah, it's just so ridiculously good. It's very underrated in the eyes of some, but I absolutely love how ridiculously versatile and strong Gardevoir really is. It also completes my Dragon Fairy Steel Core with Dragapult and Melmetal, giving me a Psychic type and a Fairy type. Healing Wish support is also really nice for those Pokemon as well. Gives me momentum with Teleport. And then of course with Dual Stab, getting coverage for Steel types like Mystical Fire, still gets stuff like Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Knockoff. So I have a potential knockoff user, which I have brought in the past, but yeah, really like to use Gardevoir again, and I had to fit it on this team because it just fits so well, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, Gardevoir is just such a good Pokemon. It's ridiculously good, very underappreciated, but just happy to run it back with Gardevoir and see if we can work some of that magic from the SDA. So yeah, moving on, round number 6. We picked up a round 6 Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen was really important to get at this point in time because my first 5 picks were lacking a certain thing, and that thing is I had no rocker. I had no Stealth Rock setter, and I knew for a fact I also wanted to get a grounded poison for my draft just to have that potential T-Spike absorber. Nidoqueen, technically either Nidoqueen or Nidoking, excuse me, were the options at this point, whether I get either or. But like I said, I needed a Stealth Rocker, I wanted a grounded poison. Nidoqueen and Nidoking check both of those boxes. But I opted for Nidoqueen over Nidoking basically due to the fact of being slightly bulkier. And while both would basically fill the same role, I do tend to lean more towards the more bulkier of the two in terms of whether I want the bulk or the added power. I feel like I had enough power between Dragapult, can potentially be choice specs. Zapdos can be offensive, so it's not limited to just being Nidoqueen. And even though Nidoqueen's not really very strong from an offensive standpoint, Sheer Force Life Orb sets still exist. So it's no slouch itself in terms of getting off damage on something. But yeah, the main thing I needed was to have the Stealth Rocker, the Grounded Poison, a potential Toxic Spike setter, as well as giving me an electric immunity, which my team lacked. And Nidoqueen pretty much checked all those boxes. And it was something I desperately needed for my team. So yeah, really excited to have Nidoqueen on the squad. So next up, my round 7 pick, and it gets a little bit iffy here, just because of the fact that some of my picks were kind of felt meh in my own personal opinion, but they still perform specific roles for my team. So round number 7, we got a Alolan Persian. Now, granted, Alolan Persian was not the original Dark type I had in mind on this draft. I was looking at stuff like Incineroar, but Incineroar got taken. Then the next thing I was looking at was Galarian Moltres, but the more I looked at Galarian Moltres, the more it felt like it didn't really fit with this team, just because of the fact that I wasn't really scared off by the fact that it didn't have Roost or Knockoff or Defog, whatever. It was more of the fact that it didn't really get that much value from on my team specifically. Granted, Galarian Moltres, like Mandibuzz, is one of the better checks to Dragapult, but I feel like I can handle Galarian Moltres and Mandibuzz enough already with what I already have. So I opted to go a little bit further down and get a lower tier Dark type. And while Alolan Persian isn't technically the best Dark type, I felt like it was the one Dark type I would actually attempt to bring on a regular basis, especially considering it does check a few boxes for my team. First off, obviously it's a Dark type. Secondly, it gives me something above base 100 speed, something that I was really lacking so far because I had a huge speed gap after taking that Dragapult round 1. It gives me an actual potential knockoff user, so I can knock off potential Rocky Helmets for the Urshifu, for the Melmetal, which is helpful for them. I get Parting Shot support into other Pokemon, so another potential momentum grabber, can taunt, can toxic. I already talked about Parting Shot, and it can also be a potential nasty plot user as well. So another real versatile mon, not the strongest, but it fills specific roles for my team that I felt needed addressing. So that is the Alolan Persian pick right there. So on to my round 8 pick, and I ended up opting to go with Magmortar with my round 8 pick. Now, granted, Magmortar isn't really the best. Granted, I did want some sort of fire type wall breaker, and granted, Magmortar, like I said, is not the best at its job, but considering Magmortar was a tier 5 pick and nothing else in tier 5 really appealed to me, like potentially something like Kangaskhan, but Kangaskhan's actually taken. But yeah, having that fire type is really helpful to have another way to pressure like bulky steel types for Melmetal. It has ridiculously good coverage, stuff like Scorching Sands, Thunderbolt, to name a few. Earthquake if I want to go mixed, even Psychic has some random coverage. It also gives me another momentum grabber with Teleport, which is also pretty decent to have on a Pokemon like this. But mainly the role of Magmortar is to be a potential special wall breaker as well as a fire type. It gets two decent abilities, Flame Body to deter some physical attackers. Granted, Magmortar is not really the type of Pokemon that wants to take those hits because its defensive stats is fairly low. And then of course Vital Spirit in case I do need to switch Magmortar in to absorb like a Sleep Powder or a Spore or whatever. Magmortar can switch in and do some can negate the sleep move and then fire off some powerful Fire Blast or whatever coverage move I decide to go for. So yeah, not much else to say about Magmortar. It's a pretty straightforward mon that fulfills the role of a fire type and a decent wall breaker for my team. So moving on, round number 9, I ended up going with a round 9 Orbeetle. Orbeetle was a Pokemon I've always wanted to use in Draft League format, but in previous drafts, I do tend to hesitate when it comes to like doubling up on specific typings, especially whenever I want to use Orbeetle. I usually already have Gardevoir, and whenever I go Gardevoir, I usually have Vikavolt with it, but in this case, Orbeetle makes sense because looking at my team, looking at the team overall, you'll notice that there's one big flaw so far prior to the Orbeetle pick, and that was the fact that I didn't really have a ground resist. Like, I had an immunity, I had Zapdos, but that's not really a long-term ground resist for the most part, especially if I'm facing off against something like a Zygarde. Like, if I face Zygarde and I didn't draft Orbeetle, what's my ground resist? I had nothing. I have to run like Sugar Berry or Air Balloon or whatever the case may be, but that's not an adequate ground resist. Orbeetle gives me something. It's still relatively bulky. It also gives me a potential setup sweeper with Iron Defense, Calm Mind, can store power, can body press, U-turn for momentum, as well as Sticky Web in case I want to control, if I want some speed control for the rest of my team. So yeah, that is the role of Orbeetle potentially as a ground resist, and pretty good potential sweeper. Not really expecting too much out of Orbeetle, but it's still a Pokemon I really love to use. I love the design and the unique typing of being Bug Psychic. So yeah, really excited to use Orbeetle for sure. And then for the last two picks, well, this next one was more of a filler pick as far as I'm concerned. So I picked up a round 10 Lurantis just because I needed another tier 5 Pokemon and I didn't have a grass type, and nothing else in tier 5 really appealed to me in terms of what I was lacking. I needed a grass type, and for the most part Lurantis was there, so I took Lurantis. But for the most part, Lurantis is mostly here as a potential defogger, another defogger with Zapdos, and then of course it has like Contrary Leaf Storm, Contrary Superpower. It gives me a potential Cleric as well with Aromatherapy. Can be bulky enough to be a decent water type check, as well as being able to check other specific stuff, but nothing too crazy for the most part. Like Lurantis is just basically like a low tier grass type for the most part. I always end up drafting like ground resist or grass types like really late, or I tend to use grass type Pokemon that actually doesn't resist ground. If there's one Pokemon that I kind of am iffy on, or not really a Pokemon that's going to be showing up more often than not, this would probably be the pick. Not saying that Lurantis is bad, but for the most part it does fulfill roles in being another ground resist and a water type check as well as a defogger. So it does have some merit with my draft for the most part. And moving on to the final pick of the draft, I needed another tier 3, and for the most part I also wanted another Stealth Rocker. And for the most part, there was also one other glaring thing with my draft, is that the fact that I didn't really have a really good Ghost Resist. You see my team, my Ghost Resist is Alolan Persian. That's not good. So I needed to address both of those roles. And the only Pokemon in Tier 3 that I actually felt comfortable using and comfortable bringing on a regular basis, if I have to, it had to be Blissey. So yeah. If it wasn't for the fact that I had to get Blissey because I needed another rocker, I probably would have gone a different route. However, Blissey does fulfill the role of being a ghost immunity. It fulfills the role of another stealth rocker, so I don't have to bring rocks on Nidoqueen every single time. It gives me another potential momentum grabber with teleport. It's a good cleric. It can pass wishes to stuff like my Dragapult. I can pass wishes to pretty much my entire team, so Gardevoir isn't stuck in that sort of weird wish role for the most part. I have an actual cleric. And of course, Heavy Duty Boots with Natural Cure is ridiculously good. The passiveness of Blissey on my draft is offset by the fact that I do have some pretty good powerful wall breakers to make up for its passiveness. And of course, like I said, slow teleport into those wall breakers is always good to have, especially for a Pokemon like Blissey that doesn't want to take those physical hits. I have physical checks like the Zapdos, like pretty much my Orbeetle for the most part, Nidoqueen as well, being a fighting resist. But yeah, I feel like Blissey's weaknesses is covered up very, very well by what my team already has as a whole. So, with that being said, this is a team we are going to be rocking with for the SBU. Really, really excited to use this team. Granted, I am the only coach in the league that didn't actually take an S-tier Pokemon, but I'm not really too worried about that. It's not like taking an S-tier was mandatory anyway. And for the most part, it all just comes down to what you feel more comfortable with, and I feel comfortable using this team. Really, really excited to try it out. Leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Let me know in your comment section below what you think about the team, what you like, what you don't like, etc., etc. I accept any and all opinions or flaws or whatever the case may be. I am totally open to any and all opinions for the most part. I am open-minded. I am very, very open-minded in terms of like other people's thought processes and whatnot. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I hope you guys did enjoy. Week 1 will be going up next Saturday, so I hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. So, that being said, again, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out all the other coaches in the SBU in the description down below. And until the next time, this is Tone, signing out for now. Peace out.